episode number 2, all things beer. Let's go out into the brewery today and let's kick off our Hazy IPA. It's the one that I showed in episode number 1 in the introduction. So if you're keen, let's go out and brew it up. So for today's beer that we're going to brew a Hazy IPA. It's going to be a sessionable IPA. It's going to be about a 4.2%. Got a local brew shop that grew up all my grains here for me. Spelled my name wrong. It's no big deal, I'll get over it. In today's recipe, we're going to have 2.7 kilos of Pilsner malt to give it a little bit of mouthfeel that you normally have in your typical IPAs. We're going to put 900 grams of flaked oats in there. We're going to put 450 grams of barley and 450 grams of flaked wheat. That'll give it a little bit of head and make it taste a bit nicer. So we're shooting for a original gravity of 1.046 and then a final gravity of 1.014. So like I said, a little bit more mouthfeel, and that'll give us about a 4.2% beer. My brewing setup comprises of a 40 litre urn that I've got, SS brew tun. It's an insulated mash tun with a false bottom in it. SS brew here, and I can also sparge in through the top. And then I've got 2 pumps, one for transferring over between the mash tun and the kettle and the mash tun, and another pump for recirculation and cooling. And then I've got a 40 litre kettle. And today you're going to need a hot basket because we're going to be using about 120 grams of hops inside of this brew. It's at about this point in my brew day when I want to get my yeast out. Today I'm going to be using Y yeast 1058. 1058, that's the one. It's a London Ale yeast, smack pack. Got it out of the fridge about an hour ago. Started to warm it up a little bit. You find the pocket in the corner. Give it a bit of a smack. A bit of a shake up. As the brew day goes on, you get towards pitching the yeast. This is going to be all nice and inflated and ready to rock. And the yeast is going to munch away at my beautiful wort. Next up, we are going to be adjusting the water profile. So we're going to do 3 grams of calcium chloride. I'm going to do 5 grams of Epsom salt. I'm going to do 10 grams of gypsum. Let's just drop this one into the kettle. That's it. And then we drop all of these into the kettle. And rinse it out, make sure that we get it all. Now it's time to add the grains. Time to start the 60-minute mashing. Have a bit of how it's looking. You always just want to make sure you give it a bit of a stir. Make sure there's no dough balls inside of there. That's looking beautiful at the moment. Sitting along at 70 degrees, which is perfect. Right, mash is finished. Now it's time to crack a beer and turn off the pumps and put everything into the brew kettle. the first beer.
Hey, give me one of those famous giant beers I heard so much about.
Something wrong, Yank?
No, it's pretty big, I guess.
Turn off the pump. Turn off the input from the kettle. Make sure that's throttled back so we just get like the first runnings out of it and we're not going to suck all of the grain. We're after about 27 litres before we start boiling. This one we're going to boil for 60 minutes. At the moment we've got 25 litres in the brew kettle, but I reckon there's about another 2 litres stuck in all the adjuncts. So I'll just slowly drain it off from out the front. I'm going to turn on the kettle at the moment, put it on, put the hot basket in, leave the lid in there, leaves a bit of a space in there just to let the steam out, and give it 15-20 minutes, we'll be up to boil temp. Then I like to try and rescue as much as I can out of the mash tun as well, and just slowly let it come out and seep through. I'm not going to compress down all of my grains. There's theories that it might bring out tannins, there's theories that it might not. I just don't do it. There's 27 litres in there, that's enough. I'm not going to get greedy. Righto, as you can see, there's a nice rolling boil in there. It's time to add our 60-minute additions, which is 10 grams of Citra. Dry backed, kept in the fridge, nice and fresh. This is obviously our bittering addition. Into the whole basket. Oh, so beautiful. Now that the 60-minute addition is done, until we wait for the 15-minute addition to kick in, I thought I'd just give you a quick run through on the Firmzilla. Bought the Firmzilla because I found that some of the hoppy beers that I was doing weren't retaining some of the hoppy flavour. I was just using the traditional carboys, like these, which are pretty good for, let's say, a stout or a blonde ale or something that doesn't have as much hop flavour in it. So I've switched up to the Firmzilla now, put my dry hops in here, I can release them, I put carb caps on, top and bottom, comes with a nice valve on the side here to segregate the yeast and remove it later on, comes with a dip tube and a float, so you're drawing all of your nice fresh beer off the top. Found it to be fantastic so far, goes up to 35 psi. If you do use one of these, you do have to buy a spunning valve. Spunning valve sets you around about $30, and I set mine to about 15 psi. So as I'm fermenting my beer and I get about a week in, I'm also carbonating. So you can drink a beer with 7, 8, 9, 10 days, depending on how clear it's looking and whether it's all carved up. Let's set the Firmzilla to the side and get our 15-minute addition already. And then for a 15-minute addition, we're going to do another 10 grams of Citra. Which is there. And I'm also going to put in a well flop. Although this is a hazy beer, I still want it to flocculate in the kettle so I can draw off a nice clear beer without all of the proteins and the trube and everything going into the Firmzilla. So I can dry hop later without having to draw off all the crud in the bottom. So it'll still be a hazy beer even with the well flocked tablet. Right, now it's time for the 15-minute addition, which is another 10 grams of Citra and a well flock. We know where. We're now going to weigh out the hop stand addition. So Top stand edition, we've got 56 grams of Citra and 56 grams of Mosiac. 58 grams of Citra, 56 of Mosiac. $56. Now that we're up to the 10-minute point, I'm going to recirc my pump and my chiller so I can make sure that it's all sanitised. Going to open up the valve that leads down to my pump. Going to bring my line from the output of my chiller back into my kettle. Trying to lower it down as much onto the wort as possible. I don't like to splash it around too much, so I like to keep it nice and close. Open that line, open up that one, and then we start a bit of a recirc in order to make sure that it's sanitised. Find that when I'm doing it in the cold temperature, the temp will drop down a little bit, but I let the kettle build back up again to 100 degrees and then basically start my 10 minutes all over again. Right, 60-minute boil has finished. At this point now we can turn off the kettle and we're going to cool it down to 82 degrees. Do our hop stand where we're going to add 56 grams of Citra, 56 grams of Mosiac. Right, now we're going to start the process of cooling. I have put my yeast into the sanitizer, put my spoon into the sanitizer, scissors into the sanitizer, and I'm going to turn on my cooling water. Ground water in Melbourne at the moment is freezing in Australia, so it shouldn't take long. Alright, now it's time to put it into the thermostat. I'm going to do the old one of those ones. Basically, the only time that you can aerate the wort or the beer is when it's cooled, during the transfer. From all this point onwards, you try and reduce it. It's time now to aerate the wort. I like to aerate mine first, pitch the yeast after. Some people pitch first, aerate after. I don't know if there's a difference or not. I really don't. I don't think there is. But basically, pick it up like this. And then rock it like a newborn baby for about 60 minutes. It's at about the 22nd point that you get knackered. And you realise you're nowhere near as strong as what you thought you were. And you think, oh yeah, 30 seconds will do it. That'll do. Let's pitch, baby, pitch. You put everything back into the sanitizer. Doing that. And the yeast and the sanitizer. And a little tear pack there. You got to treat the yeast well. You have to remember that yeast is just a living organism. It needs air, food, warmth. Let's treat it good. Brew. push out. Making sure that it's firm. Doesn't need to be crazy tight. Get rid of that. Switch it out. Just make sure it's all mixed in. Good. Right, pinch of sneaky gravity reading. Going out of the hoses there. And then my hydrometer. I am going to say 42. 1.042. Pretty good. Next step, I am going to stick on my spunning valve. My spunning valve is set to 10 psi at the moment. I'm going to click that on to air post. And then I'm going to go and stick this beautiful beer underneath the stairs. I'm going to keep it at 20 degrees for the first 5 days. Then I'm going to bump it up to 21 for the next 3 or 4 days, where I think it'll just about be done. Day 3, dry hop it with 56 grams of Citra, just to see if I can give it a bit of extra aroma. And well, this is it. Looks bloody good. It's hazy, got a good head on it. Because I pressure fermented it for a week, it already was pre-carbed, and then I put it under 10 psi for the last 2 days, and it's come up mint. Beautiful. Cheers. Yeah, that's good. That's it. The IPA brew day is finished. Same as with episode number 1. Please like the video, subscribe, and comment if you want to know any more about the brew day. Thanks very much. See you next time.